Here's our goal like yesterday. We're going to graph and write equations of circles. You're going to see how we could graph an equation in this form. It represents a circle with a certain radius. And we're also going to see how could we write a standard form of an equation if it passes through a certain point and whose center is the origin. We're going to come back to this slide at the end of the lecture. We have the following equation: x squared plus y squared equals r squared. This is standard form of a circle's equation whose center is at the origin. This is all we're going to be concentrating on. We're not going to move around that center. Just getting a basic idea of a circle's equation. This picture is in your book on page 601. And a circle's equation is actually created using Pythagorean theorem. And if your center is at the 0, you could take each ordered pair and create a right triangle to figure out that hypotenuse. And it turns into leg squared plus leg squared equals the hypotenuse squared. That's where this equation was even developed, using Pythagorean theorem. X squared plus y squared equals 64. To graph this equation, we're going to take all the points that if you square each, you should have my bad, let me take that back. You're going to find all the points that have a radius that are 8 away from 0, 0. Here's what I mean. Always going to take the square root of that number. Square root of 64, that's where I'm getting this 8 from. So to quickly graph this equation, I've got a center at 0, 0. I'm going to go 8 over, 8 up, 8 to the left, 8 down. And this circle is the point, all the points that are 8 away from the center. 24x squared plus 24y squared equals 144. We could, in order to be in standard form, you have to have x squared and y squared having a coefficient of 1, not 24. So because they both have a 24 with them, we could factor it out, giving us 24 times the quantity, x squared plus y squared, equal to 144. Now that I've turned it into some type of product, 24 times something, I can divide both sides by 24. Canceling or reducing the left side, giving us x squared plus y squared equals 6. This 6 helps me find my radius, but I have to take the square root of 6 to get my radius, which is approximately 2.45. So I put marks in between 2 and 3, and then I create my circle going around. And we're going to write the equation of a circle if the radius is 3 root 3. Standard equation of a circle. X squared plus y squared equals some type of radius squared. So I'm going to plug in that radius, 3 root 3, and square it. Now, if it said that the radius was 7, then all we would have to do is put 7 squared and we could end with a 49 right here. But because it's a 3 root 3, we're going to review some of our algebra facts. 3 squared is 9. The square root of 3 squared is just a 3. Final answer, this equation will be x squared plus y squared equals 27. Next problem is, what if we're given a point on the circle and we've got -4, -1, and stressing that the center is the origin. Any point that is on the circle should be used in this equation. So if I'm given a point on the circle, we can plug them in. We can plug them into x and y to find our radius. So I can take -4 and square it, plus -1 square it. That'll give me my radius squared. So I get, anytime you have a negative squared, it turns into a positive. 16 plus 1 equals r squared. So 17 equals r squared. If I'm trying to find what the radius is, I could take the square root of both sides. Purpose of this is to have x squared plus y squared equals some type of radius squared, and you simplify. So instead of the square root of 17 being squared, I'll end it with a 17 there. Going over the first answer, if I have to graph this, I'm going to take the square root of 10 to figure out my radius. And we're looking at approximately 3.1. So from the origin, I'm going 3.1 up, 3.1 down. And connecting those points. In the next one, if I'm passing through 2, -12, I could plug these into the standard form of an equation to figure out my radius. Taking 2 squared plus -12 squared equal to the radius squared. So 4 plus 144, we're looking at 148 equal to r squared. I could take the square root of 148, but then when I go back to the equation, I'm just going to have to square it again. The ending equation should be x squared plus y squared equals 148.